Picture this. 1967, you're in love with a spouse, but the government doesn't want you to get married, so what do? You go to a state where you can. This is the story of Loving vs. Virginia. My name is Jake McCoy, and tonight we're going to be doing Drunk History.
I'm Tracy. I look really dumb.
Kevin Martinez.
Bailey Boyd.
And I'm Jake McCoy. Stick around, we're going to have a lot of fun. Is he coming?
Somebody order a pizza.
Yes! Why, yes, I did! I am so excited right now.
Everybody gets excited for pizza.
Oh, yes,
Here you
we
go.
do. Thank you.
No problem.
Here we go. Start off with
we
that,
have
like,
to take a
half
shot.
I'm okay.
Half.
I'm okay.
Alright, I'll take one for the team.
Alright, you take one.
I'll take three. Let's get started, shall we?
Mildred Jeter. I think that's her last name. And Richard is a white man, and Mildred she identifies as Roanoke Indian, but they mostly portray her as an African American woman throughout most of the case. And so they live in Virginia, and they meet when she's 13 and he's like 18, and yeah, so they kind of like each other, and they're like, and so
They're in love. Okay, they really love each other.
they're in love.
Deep in love.
But because they live in Virginia, it's not okay. Because Virginia's racist as fuck.
Matter of fact, they passed
How
a racist
so?
as fuck law back in
We're gonna get
1928.
into later.
In 1924, they passed the Racial Integrity Act of 1924. And this act basically says, you can't have interracial marriage, you can't have interracial sex, that's not okay. It's not good. Right?
So basically,
take it away, Bailey.
This is what happens. So one night, Richard and his beloved go out to dinner.
And Richard says something along the lines of, "Baby, I love you. And there's no one else that I'd spend the world with. And I want to spend it with you. Baby." And Mildred says something along the lines of, "What?"
What? She's just laughing.
She's loving it at this point. But what does Mildred really say?
She's just like, yes. I guess there's no one
I guess
would rather spend my life with than the love of my life, Richard.
Sweet Richard.
Married.
Do you accept Mildred as your wife?
Yeah, I guess.
I do.
And do you accept Richard as your husband? I do.
Can I do this next part?
Yeah.
And by the power invested in me, bada bing, bada boom, you're married.
There's pounding at the Loving's home, right?
Boom,
And
boom,
they're
boom,
asleep.
boom.
It's 2 a.m. All of a sudden, they start hearing boom, 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 boom at the door. And Mildred wakes up and she's like, "What the fuck? What is this?" She's like, "Richard, what is this?" And Richard's like,
"Baby, I'll protect you."
and Mildred's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever, And so the FBI, not the FBI. Not the FBI.
It's the sheriff's department.
Freaking sheriff shows up out of nowhere, and he's like, "What are you doing? What's going on here? Why are you in bed with her?" And Richard's like, "'Cause she's my wife." Right? And Mildred's like, "Yeah." And she points up at their marriage license that's on the wall.
On the wall.
On the wall. And the cop is like, "Too bad. I can't see that." So he arrests them. But the weird thing is that he goes in at 2 a.m. to arrest them because in Virginia's statue of their anti
miscegenation law.
that stuff.
You can't have
It says
sex.
you can't have interracial sex.
So they were being perverts.
Or marriage.
What? They were being pervs and they were trying to find them having sexy stuff. Sexy
Peeping
times.
Toms.
Yeah.
Motherfuckers.
That's gross. So they arrested them.
Heavily.
They get bailed out and Loving's not. She gets bailed out later.
What?
Shit, bro.
This is the extended universe. You obviously haven't
Because
seen
you're
It was in the movie.
Okay, but you just said Richard gets bailed out and
Yeah.
Loving doesn't. That Richard Loving
Mildred doesn't.
Marijuana is the same as weed.
I'm sorry, keep going.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, well, I need to let other
Wait,
people
hold
take a
on,
turn.
Hold on.
So they get arrested,
I need another beer.
right? So Richard gets bailed out and Mildred is still in jail.
The tangerine.
And she gets bailed out later. And as they approach the court, Judge, what was his name?
Leon Besley.
Leon Basil? Something.
Leon M. Basil.
Something like that. All you need to know, this dude was racist. And he says something along the lines of, well, you can do a year in jail because y'all were married, or you can leave the county and the state of Virginia right away and not come back for 25 years. And those were the options given to them. And they take the 25-year deal. They decided to leave Virginia and move to D.C.
It's a really sad time in their lives because all their family and their friends live in Virginia. And they don't want to be in D.C. That's not where their heart is. Their heart is... Sorry.
We have some Star Wars playing in there.
Then, so basically they're like, okay, we gotta make the best out of this. We can't go back to Virginia.
Stripping on
We're
me.
gonna try to start a life here in DC. So they raise their 3 children. They begin to raise their 3 children in DC. And yeah, but they always had longed to return to Virginia.
So, one day in DC, Richard's, I don't know where Richard's at, he's probably at work. And the kids
Yeah, work.
He at work. So, the kids they're playing outside, this and that. And all of a sudden, because it's a big city, it's always busy, a car comes and hits Mildred's kid. So her kid gets run over. It's okay. He's alive. He survives. But Mildred's like, what is this? You know, she's like, what's this city? Like, it's just full of cars. We're running my kids over. She's like, the kitchen's small. She's like, I can't walk anywhere without hearing my neighbor's poop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's like, I just can't stand the city. She's like, I just want to go back to Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Where
like,
she lived in Virginia was like super rural, and they had their little place, and so it was
they could smell
They were
the fresh
completely-
cow poops.
out of their comfort zone, you know.
Yeah, so Mildred decided that she was over it. She was over the city. She was going to move back to where they lived in Virginia.
And
So she comes up to Richard and she's
Yeah.
like, Richard, we got to come up with a plan.
Baby, what you got for me? I'll support you in anything that you want. That's what Richard says.
she's like,
Mildred's frustrated with the city. She doesn't like it. She's up in her small little kitchen. She's banging pots and pans everywhere. And Richard comes up and she's like, Richard, she's like, we gotta come up with something. She's like, I'm tired of living here. The kitchen's small. I just can't do it. There's people running over my kids. She's like, I can't, I'm over it. And she's like, what you got, Richard? What you got? And Richard's like,
Richard says something along the lines of, baby, I love you. And look, maybe we should write to somebody. Maybe to the Attorney General Kennedy. Why don't you try doing that? Right?
but somebody just randomly comes up to send mail to the Attorney General.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think you should go through with it. I support you 100%, baby.
Shows up, she sits down and she starts writing this letter.
Dear Attorney General,
Kennedy. Well, what
She wrote to Kennedy.
was pretty cool is that Kennedy wrote back, and I was like, cool. I want the fucking Attorney General to write me the fuck back. Like, what the fuck? But he says something like, I can't help you. Like, what the fuck? But I know some dudes that can help you, and it's the ACLU. And I'm gonna hook you up with them. I'll give you your number. Actually, I'm gonna give them your number, and they're gonna call you. And that's what happened.
Let my people call your people.
Exactly. You know, we can be friends, meet friends, and whatever.
Go out on the weekends.
Exactly.
Ride some cows.
And so the ACLU ends up calling Mildred, right?
Yeah, they found her.
Yeah, and they say something along the lines of, look, Mildred says something like, we can't afford it, and ACLU is like, no, we're gonna cover all the costs. We just want to take your case, and we want to take down this racist law in Virginia. So, yeah.
So they filed the motion in 63. And then Judge Bazile, the original judge that ordered their conviction, responded in 1964 of October.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like a whole year later. Can we just note that the system's slow as fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Even then? Okay. But then the judge goes on to say, this is what Judge Leon says.
Almighty God created the races white, black, yellow, Malay, and red. And he placed them on separate continents. And before the interference with his arrangement, there would be no cause for such marriages. The fact that losing it. The fact that he separated the races shows he did not intend for the races to mix.
So basically he was like, no, I'm not going to vacate your convictions. You guys violated a law that is in place, the anti-miscegenation
Miscegenation law.
that is in Virginia. And you know what? If you have a problem with it, you can take it to another court. So that's what the fuck they did. Their lawyers were like, we're gonna appeal this shit. And Mildred is like, this is so stressful. I've been dealing with this shit for so many years. And their lawyers are like, we are gonna fight as hard as we can, as long as we can, to do the best that we can. So you know what? We're gonna appeal this shit. So that's what they did. They appealed it, and then it went to Virginia Supreme Court. And the Virginia Supreme Court,
They were like,
they were all...
sucks to be you because the equal protection clause doesn't count. Because that's what the lawyers were trying to say. They were like, the equal protection clause protects us from this, you know, these racist laws. And they were like, no, it doesn't, because both of you guys were punished in the exact same way. So it doesn't fucking matter. So they were like, well, fuck this shit. Fuck you, Virginia. Fuck you, Supreme Court of Virginia. Fuck you, Bazile. And fuck that guy over there. We're going to the Supreme Court. So that's what they did.
So they appealed again.
On April 10th, 1967, they took that shit all the tippity top to the Supreme Court.
And then the Supreme Court had to answer the question whether a statutory law by Virginia to prevent marriages between persons solely on the basis of race violates the Equal Protection Clause and Due Process Clauses of the 14th Amendment. So this is how this all unfolded.
I'm not sure how. Lawyers argued the little hearts out, and they were like, this is not okay. This is racist. This is Jim Crow. And Virginia's lawyers were like, this is totally okay. This is like laws against, you know, doing stuff with your family members.
They were trying to compare it to like incest.
Yeah, like they were like, this
Super
is
dumb.
totally okay. They were like, marrying someone outside of your race is like doing it with your brother, or like polygamy or some shit like that.
Dumb.
So yeah, honestly. So anyway, the Supreme Court judges they were just like, we're not buying this shit. They were like, we're just not, it's whatever, you know? So they were like, you know what, Lovings, you got a good case. We believe in you. So that's what they did. But wait, no, just kidding. So wait, before all of that happened, they didn't say that before. What's his name? Richard was like, Mr. Cohen, which was Mr. Cohen was his lawyer. He was like, Mr. Cohen, tell the court, I love my wife, and it's just unfair. I cannot live with her in Virginia. And the judges were like, you know what? That's some of the deepest shit I've ever heard. So they were like, yeah, you're right. You should let them live in Virginia.
Okay, well, like,
After much deliberation, on June 12th, 1967, the Supreme Court decided to ban the ban on interracial marriages. And so that was the day that everybody could get married. Well, not everybody. Not just yet. That was coming up soon.
wait, can I say one quote, like, that we can add 19?
Under our Constitution, the freedom to marry or not marry a person of another race resides with the individual and cannot be infringed by the state. Chief Justice Earl Warren. You go.
Yeah, so,
Home. And some drunk dude was like, I'm just gonna run this stop sign. And he ran and
So
crashed
sad.
into their car, and Richard died. And Virginia lost sight in her eye. Not Virginia, I meant Mildred. Because I said Virginia. Not Mildred. She lost sight in her eye, and then she just recently died, and it's okay. She just recently died in 2008 from pneumonia. But one thing that she always kept saying was that she didn't do this to be famous.
she only lives once.
She didn't want to be a hero.
She only did it because she loved Richard.
And that she misses him.
And that she misses Richard. And that's so cute.
And she never got remarried because she just was like, yo, my dude, even if you're dead.
And yeah.
Because she faithful to the grave.
Did you say she said, you only live once? Ban the ban. Everybody.
Ban the ban! Ban the ban! Ban the ban!
What?
Ban the ban!
Huh?
Ban the ban.
What?
Ban the ban!
Say what?
Ba-bam! Ba-bam! Ba-bam!
We had a remix going there.
Alright, later.
I'm so happy I'm in a group with y'all.
I know, I love you guys. You guys are awesome. Aww.
Oh,
Aww.
sweet group of mine.